Welcome back, everyone. Ready for another deep dive?
Always ready to dive in.
Great, because today we're going microscopic, like really tiny, to explore a scientific breakthrough in, well, how we understand the very beginnings of life, like way back in the beginning.
Sounds intriguing already.
Oh, it is. It all started with a recent article just came out, actually, from the Hebrew University of Jerusalem.
Oh, I saw that one. Really interesting stuff.
Right. They've been looking at this mysterious structure inside egg cells. It's called the Balbiani body.
Ah, yes, the Balbiani body. Fascinating, isn't it?
Incredibly fascinating. But full disclosure, I hadn't heard of it before this article, so I'm hoping you can break it down for me and for our listeners, of course.
Of course. Happy to. So for those of us who haven't spent much time thinking about egg cells, maybe haven't looked at one under a microscope lately.
Definitely not me.
Right. Well, the Balbiani body, we call it BREEB for short. Scientists and their abbreviations.
Always with the abbreviations.
Right. Anyway, so the blab, it's this structure you find in egg cells, or oocytes, to be more precise.
Oocytes.
Oocytes. And it's crucial, like really, really important for the egg to develop properly.
Okay, so it's important, but what does it actually do? Like, what's its job?
Well, think of the egg cell, the oocyte, as, I don't know, a tiny bustling city.
Okay, a tiny city.
Right. And it's preparing for a very important guest, the sperm.
Makes sense.
And the Balbiani body, it's like the city's central planning department.
The planning department.
Exactly. Making sure all the essential resources are gathered, organized, ready to go when that guest arrives.
Okay, so you're saying it's kind of like the egg cell's way of prepping for fertilization and early development.
Precisely.
Yeah.
The blab makes sure the egg has all the right molecules in the right place at the right time.
So we're talking RNA, proteins, all that good stuff.
All of that. And it's all perfectly arranged for successful fertilization and for the development of a healthy embryo.
Wow, okay. Starting to see why this research is making such a splash. But how do you even study something that tiny? We're talking about stuff happening inside a single cell.
Right. That's the amazing part. These researchers, they use zebrafish for this study.
Zebrafish, huh? Why zebrafish?
Well, their embryos are transparent. You can actually see right through them.
Oh, that's convenient.
Super convenient for scientists. It lets them watch development in real time, like as it's happening.
Wait, so they can just watch this Balbiani body forming under a microscope?
Pretty much. They're using some seriously high-tech imaging, though. Super resolution microscopy.
Super resolution. That sounds intense.
Oh, it is. It lets them capture incredible detail. We're talking seeing this tiny structure forming, step by step.
Talk about a window into a hidden world. But I gotta know, what are they actually seeing? How does this Balbiani body come together?
Good question. It's a fascinating process. Involves something called phase separation.
Yeah.
And a protein named Bucky, that's the star of the show here.
Phase separation, Bucky. All right, you're gonna have to break this down for me.
Of course. So phase separation, think of it like separating the yolk from the white in an egg.
Okay, I can picture that.
So initially, this Bucky protein, it's scattered throughout the cell, kind of like that yolk before you crack the egg.
Gotcha.
But then something interesting happens. These Bucky proteins start to clump together. They transition from this, dispersed state to a dense, concentrated droplet.
So it's like the cell is making its own little compartments, but without any membranes or walls.
Exactly. It's self-organizing, like a tiny little city figuring out its own zoning plan. And that dense droplet, that's what eventually becomes the Balbiani body.
Wow, that's mind-blowing. But I have to imagine it takes some serious coordination to make sure this all happens smoothly.
Oh, absolutely. And that's where another key player comes in, microtubules.
Microtubules, remind me, what are those again?
Think of them like tiny highways within the cell. They act as tracks, guiding the Bucky granules, making sure everything ends up in the right place.
So like a cellular traffic control system.
Precisely. Without them, it'd be total chaos. Microtubules ensure that a single, perfectly formed Balbiani body is created.
Which is crucial, you said, for the egg to do its thing.
Absolutely. Everything has to be just so for successful development.
This is already blowing my mind, and I feel like we're just getting started. But before we move on, I have to ask, is Bucky the only protein involved here?
Great question. It's actually something the researchers really wanted to figure out. And they use this powerful technique called proteomics.
Proteomics. All right, another science term for us to unpack.
Right. Basically, imagine being able to take a snapshot of every single protein working inside a cell at a specific moment.
Wow, that's a lot of proteins.
Oh, yeah, thousands of them. But proteomics lets us do it. And by applying this technique, to those zebrafish oocytes, they were able to uncover a whole network of proteins that might be involved in building the Balbiani body. It's like they mapped out the whole construction crew, for building this crucial structure.
A whole team of proteins working together to build the Balbiani body. That's amazing. But why is that so important? What can this tell us about, human development?
Well, that's where things get really interesting. Zebrafish, they're great for research, but there's still so much we don't know about the Balbiani body in humans.
So like its composition, how it works in us, all that.
Exactly. It's still a bit of a mystery, especially in humans.
So there's still a whole world of discovery ahead. That's pretty exciting, actually.
Oh, absolutely. That's what keeps the scientists going, right?
Yeah.
Always more to learn. Every answer leads to new questions.
Speaking of new questions, you mentioned earlier that the Balbiani body does more than just gather molecules. Something about determining the embryo's orientation, too.
Right. That's another crucial role it plays. Think about it. For an embryo to develop correctly, it needs to know which way is up, so to speak.
Like which end will become the head, which end will become the tail.
Exactly. And the Balbiani body helps establish that.
Okay, I'm all ears. How does this tiny structure influence something as big as the entire body plan?
Well, it all comes down to those molecules it gathers. It's not just about having the right ones, but also where they're located within the cell.
So placement matters.
Big time. As the egg develops, the Balbiani body actually moves. And as it moves, it redistributes those molecules.
So it's not just a static structure, it's dynamic, it's on the move.
Exactly. It's creating these gradients, higher concentrations of certain molecules in some areas, lower concentrations in others.
So it's like the Balbiani body is a conductor, orchestrating the placement of each instrument in a grand symphony.
A perfect analogy. These molecular gradients, they act like signposts, guiding the developing embryo, telling it which way is up, which way is down, and where everything should go.
That's incredible. So if we could understand how the Balbiani body orchestrates this process in humans, could that lead to breakthroughs in reproductive health?
It's definitely a possibility. Imagine being able to ensure healthier embryos, reducing the risk of birth defects.
Or even helping couples who are struggling with infertility.
Exactly. Understanding the intricate mechanisms of early development, that could open up so many doors.
It's pretty exciting to think about, but are there any potential downsides? We're talking about manipulating the very building blocks of life here.
You're right to raise that point. It's crucial to have open discussions about the ethical implications of any scientific breakthrough, especially when it comes to something as profound as human development. We need to tread carefully and responsibly.
For sure. We can't just charge ahead without considering the consequences. Okay, so we've talked about the Balbiani body as this incredible organizer, getting everything ready for life to begin. But you also mentioned that this research could have implications beyond just reproduction. Something about diseases like Alzheimer's.
Right. Remember how we talked about phase separation, those Bucky ball proteins forming those dense droplets?
Yeah, like the yolk separating from the white in an egg.
Exactly. Well, similar processes can occur in other parts of the body, sometimes with, not so good consequences.
Wait, so you're saying that these clumps of proteins, like the ones that form in Alzheimer's disease, they might have something in common with the Balbiani body?
That's the fascinating part. In Alzheimer's, you have these abnormal clumps of proteins. They're called amyloid plaques. And they wreak havoc on brain cells. But the Balbiani body, it forms a similar structure, but in a very controlled way.
So it's like the Balbiani body knows how to do phase separation right without causing harm.
Exactly. It knows when to form, when to dissolve, how to deliver its cargo without damaging anything.
It's like a master of self-assembly and disassembly. Could studying that process help us understand how these diseases develop?
That's the million-dollar question. It's still early, but the potential is definitely there. By figuring out how the Balbiani body manages this delicate balance, we might gain some valuable clues about how those processes go wrong in diseases like Alzheimer's.
That's an incredible thought. This tiny structure in an egg cell potentially holding the key to understanding and maybe even treating some of humanity's most challenging diseases.
It really highlights the interconnectedness of biology, doesn't it? What we learn from studying the beginnings of life can shed light on things like aging and disease.
We've come a long way in this deep dive, exploring the Balbiani body's formation, its function, its potential impact. But before we go too far, maybe let's take a moment to recap, just to bring it all together.
Sure. So, starting with the Balbiani body's amazing ability to self-organize, gathering those essential molecules, putting them in the right place within the egg cell.
And we can't forget its role in setting up the embryo's orientation, essentially laying the foundation for the development of a whole organism.
Right. And then there's the potential implications for human health, reproductive medicine, regenerative medicine, even beyond that. But amidst all this excitement, we have to remember the ethical considerations too.
Absolutely. We need to have those open and honest conversations about the potential benefits and risks of, messing with the Balbiani body.
Yeah.
We have to make sure these discoveries are used for good, that we're not just charging ahead without thinking about the consequences. This has been, wow, just a captivating deep dive. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us. I feel like I've learned so much. It's amazing, We started with this tiny structure, this Balbiani body, and it's led us to these huge questions about life, health, ethics.
It really shows you how interconnected everything is in biology, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And what strikes me is, the elegance of it all. This Balbiani body, it's like a master organizer, making sure everything is in its place.
Nature's efficiency is remarkable, isn't it? Creating order from what seems like chaos.
It's like, I don't know, like watching a perfectly choreographed dance, but on a molecular scale. Each protein, each molecule knowing exactly what to do, when to do it.
It's a beautiful analogy. And that dance, it's not just about creating life, but protecting it too.
Oh, how so?
Well, remember all those molecules the Balbiani body gathers?
Yeah.
RNA, proteins, all of that. Some of those RNAs, they have a very specific job. They silence harmful genetic elements. Things like transposons.
Transposons, those are those jumping genes? The ones that can cause mutations and mess things up?
Exactly. They can be troublemakers, disrupting the genome. But the Balbiani body, it keeps them in check.
So it's like a guardian, protecting the genome from these little genetic rebels.
The guardian, a conductor, a central planner. The Balbiani body wears many hats, it seems.
It really does, making sure the egg cell has everything it needs for a healthy start, while also protecting it from potential threats. It's like a cellular superhero.
I like that. A tiny superhero working behind the scenes to make life possible.
It makes you wonder, what other secrets are hidden within these tiny structures.
Oh, I'm sure there are countless mysteries left to unravel. That's the beauty of science, isn't it? Always something new to discover.
This whole deep dive has been a real eye-opener for me. It's incredible to think that something so small, so seemingly insignificant, can have such a huge impact.
It's a good reminder, I think, that we shouldn't underestimate the power of the little things. Sometimes, the smallest details can hold the biggest secrets.
Speaking of secrets, you know what I keep thinking about? What if we could learn from this Balbiani body? What if we could apply its principles to other areas of biology or even technology?
Now you're thinking outside the cell. That's a fascinating idea. You're talking about harnessing the power of self-organization, molecular orchestration, the kind of things the Balbiani body does so well.
Exactly. What if we could design artificial systems that mimic those abilities?
The possibilities are pretty mind-blowing when you think about it. Self-assembling nanobots for targeted drug delivery, engineered tissues with precise architectures for regenerative medicine.
Or even new materials that can adapt and respond to their environment, just like the Balbiani body does within the cell.
You're getting it. Nature has already solved so many of the challenges we face in science and engineering. We just need to learn from it.
It's inspiring, really, to think that this tiny structure, the Balbiani body, could have these ripple effects, shaping the future of medicine, technology, who knows what else.
It all starts with curiosity, with asking questions, with looking closely at the world around us. Who knows what other wonders we'll uncover if we keep our eyes open and our minds curious.
Well said. And on that note, I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive. But before we go, I want to thank you, our amazing listeners, for joining us on this journey of discovery.
Keep exploring, keep asking questions, and we'll see you on our next deep dive.
Until then, happy diving, everyone.